Welcome to Thursday, October 14th, 2021. We've got a little weather system coming through today, then better weather is coming. In fact, the weather Friday through the weekend, especially the weekend, is actually going to be pretty nice. But there will be some rain and snow showers in some areas today and tonight as there's a little system trailing the big storm that's now up into south central Canada. It'll be chilly, but clearing skies will be taking place on Friday. And then we've got a decent weekend coming up, especially based on what we just went through. We will see rebounding temperatures and sunny skies, but there'll certainly be some coolness in the air, but a nice mid-October weekend coming up. Our next storm system is late Monday and Tuesday. I'd call it a minor storm system favoring the northern areas, not a big one, but that'll be the next change in the weather. The pattern's going to get busy late in the month, and we'll tell you why, because our sea surface temperature anomalies out in the Pacific are, again, showing a lot of similarities to 2013 and 2014. A week ago or so, we talked about how this last storm that we just saw was very similar to a very strong October storm that happened in 2013. So when we go back and look at what we call analog years, years that are similar in the past to what we're experiencing now, 2013 and 2014 winter season showing a lot of similarities. Stratospheric warming late in the month. For you folks who are new to this podcast, we do talk about in the cold season what happens in the stratosphere, especially in the high latitudes near the polar regions, because that has a big bearing on sending cold air south into the lower 48 states. And we're seeing a chance that that could impact our weather late this month and into early November. Well, instead of beautiful colors out of the mountains, beautiful aspen and cottonwood tree pictures, now folks are sending me their snow pictures, which is great. Steve in Gillette shows us some good snow in his backyard there. Many areas around Gillette, 1.5 feet of snow. As 1.5 feet of snow in parts of northern Wyoming, common in many areas. Al Knight in Casper sends us this shot of some good snow in Casper as well. And then we have a before and after photo from Kevin in Jackson County, Colorado. This is just right before the storm. Now, you probably recognize this trail cam shot. Last time we saw it, there were some elk and some pretty colors. But now, this is what it looks like in northern parts of Jackson County, Colorado, near Walden. Here's the storm that was up around this area here yesterday. It's gone all the way from near Chadron, all the way up areas west of Lake Superior here into parts of south central areas of Canada. Going to be a pretty big winter storm up here for parts of Manitoba, parts of Ontario eventually, as it'll go up and curve across the northern areas of the Great Lakes. As we go forward, you see that there is a little bit of cloudiness right here. This is associated with that little upper low that's slinging through the area right now and will scoot away rather quickly tonight. Here it is. Here's the low up here in Canada, the trough coming in behind it. But by Sunday, we're in southwest flow. High pressure builds on in. So beginning tomorrow and into Saturday and Sunday, we're going to have a warming trend and a drying trend. This next wave will bring a nice shot of rain to the coastal areas of Washington, Oregon, and getting down into northern California. And as it heads east, we're going to have a little storm go across northern Wyoming and southern Montana. So the areas that just got all of that rain and snow will be the best positioned to get rain and snow out of this next storm. But you can just see the scale of the storm is much, much smaller than the last one. But this will be the next weather maker, and this is going to be Monday afternoon into Monday night and early Tuesday. This guy up here is likely going to stay off the coast for a bit before impacting us later. This is the precipitation forecast with that Monday-Tuesday system. So you can see the good rains going into Washington and Oregon, and then a kind of an east-west band of heavier precipitation going along here. So western South Dakota, northeastern Wyoming, you're going to get wet again early next week. Nothing like what you just experienced, but you're going to get more moisture. And boy, that's going to be really great news. Now, the new updated Drought Monitor just came in this morning, but I have to put a disclaimer. It does not reflect the heavy precipitation that fell in this area here over the last 72 hours. So it's not going to really show any improvement in the drought status, but I can tell you the amounts of moisture we've seen between 2 and 3 inches or more of water. You're going to see some improvements on the next map up here, which is great. Any improvement we can get is great, but you can still see how extensive the drought conditions still are. But we're going to punch a little hole in it at least that red here with next week's update. Now, taking a long range view of the forecast, this is by next weekend, Sunday, October 24th. We have a deep low off the west coast, a ridge in the center part of the country in the Rockies, and a deep low in the Great Lakes. In fact, this is going to be a pretty good Great Lakes storm by late next week and next weekend. And when you have a big storm system in the Great Lakes and the northeastern parts of the United States, that means high pressure is going to be over the Rockies. That's the way it works, the way the jet stream forms these troughs and ridges. But this guy right here, and then this cold air that's up here, is going to end up invading the west coast, then eventually into the Rockies as we get beyond the next weekend. So after the weekend of the 23rd and 24th, basically starting around October 26th through Halloween is when the next shift in colder wet weather comes in from the western areas of British Columbia, the Aleutians, and pushes its way in. And this is going to be potentially really good news. This area here, even Southern California, but Northern and Central California, in about 10 days, you have a really good shot of getting some decent precipitation. That would include snow in the Sierra Nevada. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the sea surface temperature anomalies. And this plays a role when we try to put together long-range forecasting and kind of see what the seasonal trends are. The Pacific Ocean and the changes in sea surface conditions have a really big impact on our weather in western areas of North America. The blue here shows colder than average sea surface temperatures. The blue and the green showing where it's cold. This is where the La Nina is right now. The La Nina right here in the subtropical Pacific. But two areas I want you to see is this cold pool up in the Gulf of Alaska and this warm patch of water that is in the North Pacific. Now, what we are looking at when we talked about the similarities between now and the winter of 2013 and 2014 is this is where we are now. This is where we were in 2013 for the same time. Now, it's not an exact match, but one thing definitely you see that are similar. Warm patch here, cold patch in the Gulf of Alaska. In 2013, October 2013, we were just in a very weak phase of La Nina. The La Nina was fading at that time, but notice the blue that was forming along the west coast in the warm here. Now, how does that have a bearing in the winter season? What happened in 2013 and 2014 as we got into the winter season is this warm pool in the North Pacific came in and replaced the colder water that's in the Gulf of Alaska. So this is where we are right now. What we're looking at, if we have a strong analog case for the winter of 2013 and 14 to this upcoming winter, if that warm pool does move into the Gulf of Alaska, what happens is that this causes high pressure to want to build in the Gulf of Alaska, which then makes the jet stream dip into North America like this. That releases cold air from here. That also releases cold air on the other side of the globe into North America. So what happened in the winter season of 2013 and 14, it looked just like this, but this warm pool by January moved up into here. So we're going to watch this. What this means, showing you lots of maps with different colors and stuff, what this means is this is, again, another signal that the early winter season, December, January, and February, could be cold for a lot of the lower 48 states because that's what happened in 2013 and 14. That warm water moved up into the Gulf of Alaska, and we had the door open to Canada, and we had a lot of cold waves that winter season. And that's something we're going to keep an eye on. Now, I want to talk about the stratosphere. If you made it this far into the podcast, congratulations, because I'm getting deep in the weeds here, I know. The stratosphere does play a role, especially in the winter season. What we watch is when the stratosphere gets warmer. Stratosphere, we're talking about 55,000 feet and higher. When the stratosphere goes through warm and cold periods, it does impact the weather and the climate. It's totally natural, has nothing to do with greenhouse gases. The stratosphere goes through these phases of warmer and colder. Where you see the yellow here, the stratosphere is a little bit warmer, and where you see the blue, the stratosphere is a little bit colder. What you want to remember here is that when the stratosphere goes through warm periods near the North Pole, right here, that drives colder air from the polar regions south. because the atmosphere expands and gets taller when the stratosphere gets warmer, like an accordion. And what that does is that pushes the colder air from the higher latitudes to the lower latitudes. Now, why is that important? Because this is a map for where we are now. But 2 weeks from now, approximately, the stratosphere goes through a warming trend. You see that right there? So the stratosphere gets taller, it gets thicker. And what that does is that pushes colder air here south. So when we talk about the change in the weather at the end of October into early November, a change to colder, more stormy weather, this is also getting support in the stratosphere. And we're going to talk about the stratosphere occasionally in these podcasts during the winter season because it's something that is a harbinger for things to come when we talk about long-range forecasts. Is it going to get warmer? Are we going to have a cold snap? Is there a polar vortex coming? That's what we do with the stratosphere and watching these warm and cold phases that it goes through during the course of the winter season. Thanks for listening in and watching to the Day Weather Podcast. We'll see you on Friday.